Starting something new. Everybody says that ideas rule the world. But is it really ideas? Because you can have ideas just get as dust on shelf. Or is it an attempt to activate ideas? So in the implementation of ideas, in my mind, rules the world. Are you a student, a graduate, or professional? And you have an idea. You probably have had this idea for a really long time. You keep wondering, oh, I have an idea. I have an idea. But there's a massive gap between having an idea and implementing the idea. And you can only test the potential of an idea by trying it out. Now, in a university, most people don't realize that a university provides a lot of resources to help you conceptualize but also activate your ideas. And it's all about starting something new. So what does a university have? Let's look at it for a minute. So what they do have is facilities. For example, electricity, internet, venues, tracks, classrooms, hostels, and the list goes on. So the question is, in this idea of yours, you need to do a mapping to understand what you need to make the idea happen. It's very important. So they have all of that. But there is something else a university actually has. They have lecturers, professors, different departments. All are in the university and with a potential strong support framework. So within this mix of people, are there people or individuals you can bounce the idea kind of back and forth with to help you conceptualize or maybe fine-tune or make it better? It's a question. Now, what else do universities have? Yeah, they've got students. So have you had a situation where you've gathered a set of students together, your friends or people in your class or whatever the case is, and said, well, I have an idea, and at least bounce it back and forth to them to get them to tell you what they think or they're feeling about the idea. After all, if that idea takes up, who do you think potentially would use the ideas? There are people around you. So maybe it's a good way to test the viability or commercial dimension of an idea by using things around you to grow it, to test it, to try it. Now, in work, if you're a professional, it's a bit different, which is the reason why I tell people, if you're a student, you are lucky and you're blessed because you have access to things you can almost get free of charge. Trust me. For those who are working and have left the university, you almost have to pay for everything. Now, if you are in work, the question is, if you have an idea, the same thing is important to understand. What do you need to make the idea happen? Now, for that to actually be the case, you need to actually have written it down. Well, it's an idea, but have you put a plan in place, a proposal, a brief? Can you engage that idea with somebody else, which takes you to the other model you took around partners? Can you send that idea to a potential mentor, a new network, a partner? But ultimately, you need to have it ready, written out, investigated, researched on for it to make sense. Now, ideas are great, but the next thing is this. Once you have a plan, just start it. I understand it's good to have a massive plan, but you might get belabored by too much planning. And you just caught in that bubble of just continuous plan and planning, but no actualization. So I tell people, I said, listen, for me, I'll have some plan in place, but trust me, I want to test something out. Do a simple activity. So it means you have to break down the idea into different levels and phases of implementation and start with the first one. So I'll give an example. Now, while I was studying for my master's degree, I always had the idea of getting African students together to kind of have a conference around developing their capacity and how they can contribute back to their home country. But it was always an idea. And trust me, it was an idea in my head for over 1 year. Then during my PhD, I won an international award, and I remember that I was having this different media interviews and engagements, and I'm like, well, I'm in a good position of authority, or at least of recognition, to be able to get access to some kinds of individuals I couldn't originally get access to. Then I remember my idea, but I remember at that time I hadn't written anything down. Now I have to write it. Well, anyway, I wrote it, but my point is this. I said, well, if I'm going to put this idea into fruition, into action, maybe the first thing I do is let me hold a little event. Okay? What did I do? I spoke to my university, Lancaster University, when I was doing my PhD, and I said, I have this idea, and I've written it down, and I engaged my supervisor. I said, it was called the Academia for Green Africa, AFGA. I said, well, okay, what is this about? It's a little conference, kind of get some Africans together, invite a few folks into the room, and have a chit-chat, and they liked the idea. And before you knew it, I got access to a facility, to a venue, some professors as guest speakers, some invitations were sent out, and before you knew it, I actually held the event. Now, moving forward, what happened? I realized that, wait a minute, maybe this could be much bigger. So getting African students from all over the UK into one room. The first thing I did was I had to get a team together. So I called my friend. I said, hey, I have an idea. How about we hold a conference of African students in the UK? And I remember we were having a chat and we were thinking, maybe Africa is too big. Let's go a bit smaller. So we began with the International Conference of Nigerian Students, ICONS. But it began with an idea that moved into a plan. And then I engaged some partners. And then we had a process. And then we get more partners. And before you knew it, a little idea on my mind became an actual event. And for 10 years, that event was held in different UK universities and became one of the single largest gathering of African students in the UK. It began with an idea, but then it became an action because a little activity was started. What do you have in mind that an environment where you are at the moment provides the right basis to jumpstart that idea? Starting something new. It's even better when what you start is something of a niche, something you love doing, something you've practiced on, something you've read about on, and it provides an opportunity to fill a current gap. Start something new.